What is going on, friends? I had a different video planned for tonight. I decided to do this one instead. I put the other video was like a product review, I think, or a technical video. That's going to go somewhere else. I've been joined by one of my potatoes. The other potato got offended that I wouldn't give her some toy, and so she's pouting in the corner. So I have one potato with me. The other one's passed out and gives zero shits. In any case, I want to talk specifically about what's going on in the Middle East. But I don't want to get into the politics or oh, this guy's going to nuke that guy or whatever. I don't give a shit. Not for this one. For this one, I want to talk about boots on the ground. If you and I happen to be neighbors and we happen to be there and all this pops off, regardless of what side of that fence you're on, what will we be experiencing? What are things we can learn from this? So I'm going to be right back, and I want to talk very specifically about a couple of very specific items that I'm noticing that I think are relevant. I'll be right back, and then we're going to talk about that. And hopefully we can get some lessons. I've been telling folks, get some lessons from this. I'll be right back, and we're going to do that. Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for joining me at the Roaming Prepper. Once again, before we forget, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe if you have not subbed before. If you want to share, that's super appreciated. It does help me. If you want to dislike because you think I suck today, that's okay too. I'm like half hungover anyway because I was out with business partners who were half my age, and yeah, I'm kind of feeling that today. So in any case, all drinking jokes aside, I want to talk about what's happening in Hamas, Israel, this whole kerfuffle there, right? Now, regardless of what you think is right or wrong, let's look at the actual execution of things on the ground, how things played out. So in the morning, you have this rocket attack, right? There's this incident, which to me was the distraction. Well, it wasn't a distraction, it actually destroyed shit, but that was the noisy part, right? So everyone looked at this noisy attack. Supposedly the Iron Dome was hacked temporarily, but they got it back online. I don't know, it's conflicting stories. But the Iron Dome apparently did what it was supposed to do. It just wasn't meant for 5,000 freaking rockets to come flying across the border at one time. Regardless, there was an incident that was a distraction, and while that was happening, the other things went off all at once. So while the rockets are being launched, here come the paragliders landing in what was technically a peace concert, right? There's some kind of like little Woodstock in Israel kind of thing going on, where all these 20-year-old and teenage kids were there, partying and being drunk or stoned or whatever they were doing, and they landed in the middle of that. These guys blew through the fence, started attacking police stations, overran police stations. So a couple of things I want to point out, and I'm gonna need props here. So let me get my map, my handy dandy map of that. Got it. Come on now. My handy dandy map of Gaza, which will not come up. There we go. Okay, so here's the Gaza Strip, as you can see, right? So let's think about this here. So the attacks mainly occurred around Ben Harun in this general, and let me shrink that down a little bit. There we go. Right, so while they were firing rockets into the defensive positions here, keep in mind Israel doesn't have fortifications across the whole border. They do have a border fence, but it only has intermittent checkposts, and then there are checkposts across the highways as you come into Israel, because there are a lot of people who commute back and forth for work, much like our border. I'll come back to that. Anyway, you see here, and so a lot of this here is farmland. There's not a lot of terrain impeding. So when these cats flew over, and I think that, so I'm sorry, it was Biet Hanun, I mispronounced that. So when these guys came, they attacked. That concert was, I think, happening in this general area. They literally just flew over the freaking fence and landed on these kids, right? And what that did, it got an elements behind the border checkpoints. Right now, there were checkpoints also on these highways, apparently, as you go in and out of the country. Oh, for crying out loud, I don't want that. Anyway, there was an oil reserve there. And that's interesting that I hit that by accident. There's an oil reserve there. Anyway, so first and foremost, the place they chose to attack was actually relatively flat. It did not have a lot of terrain features, which meant that these attackers could move very fast and get into cities that could get behind the checkpoints. And that was the big key there. The goal was not to go and get into it with the IDF at the checkpoints, right? Which is what they've done in the past. They went over and started doing damage behind the lines and forced the Israelis to retreat in order to consolidate to try to respond. And actually, a lot of the Israeli IDF and police got cut off. So, you know, now they've got the running shit show where they're chasing people all over that part of the country. So interesting though, that part of the country is relatively flat farmland. You don't have mountains, you don't have major rivers. There's some rivers and lakes you can see, and some reservoirs, but you don't have like the Rio Grande, you don't have the Colorado or the Mississippi cutting the landscape in half, where, you know, if you try to go across the Colorado River, downriver from the Hoover Dam, you're probably going to drown or get crushed on the rocks, right? So they picked the area very, very specifically because it's flat, because it allows them to move. They also planned with the motorcycles to move quickly. The little parasails and the ultralights they were using to hop over the fences and hop over defenses into secure areas was actually really genius. There's no reason this couldn't be used elsewhere, like Europe, like the US. So interesting how they did that. Now let's just say you and I are civilians on the ground and these guys are coming in and they're coming in multiple places. So watching, and I used X, formerly Twitter, X, TikTok, Instagram, I was looking at all these little clips that are being put up on the internet from people who are there. And one of the things I heard repeatedly, one, they have bunkers, but they're not necessarily well stocked. The bunkers were meant to protect them from rocket attack with the assumption that someone would come to get them out, or they would simply be allowed to come out later. So some of the bunkers were very well set up, some were not. I saw pictures of bunkers that basically look like a little crypt with a door. It was basically a fallout shelter. But they didn't have a lot of furniture, it was a couple of chairs, a few canned foods. So a lot of these Israelis were overly confident that they would just have to run downstairs and then they could come back up. And that wasn't the case. These guys came in looking for the civilians. They occupied the area is what they did. So interesting that a lot of them were not stocked up. Two, and a few of you have pointed out in other chats I've had, a lot of them said one he used to live in the area and he had just moved, him and his wife, outside the area that got occupied, you know, by maybe 20 miles near an Israeli checkpoint, which ironically was able to hold its defenses. But he said when he saw the video of what was happening elsewhere, he said the only weapons he had was a bat, a golf club, and a saw or something, an axe, you know, like basically tools and sporting equipment. So he said because he has a townhome with a big glass door to a garden, he put weapons around where he thought he'd need them, like the kitchen, the bedroom, stuff like that. So not only they were not prepared for a long-term siege to lock themselves in, but two, they were under the assumption it would be over quickly. Three, a lot of them did not have the means to defend themselves effectively against this kind of attack. Really makes you appreciate the Second Amendment, whether you like it or not. You got to admit, if these folks had held deer rifles, it would have really slowed Hamas down, because as they're rolling through a town and they're on their bikes and somebody picks off a motorcycle guy and he crashes because, excuse me, some guy with a 270 shot him off a bike, they're all going to stop, right? They may get violent, they may start shooting, but they're going to have to stop, because if they stay in the open, the guy with the deer rifle is going to hit another one. right? They're going to scatter. It's going to disrupt the momentum. There didn't seem to be a lot to slow the momentum down of these attackers. Okay, so you guys tracking me. So one, they're overconfident, didn't think they'd need to hunker down in their homes for an extended period. Two, they thought that it would be over quickly. Wrong. Three, they didn't have a means to defend themselves effectively. Excuse me again. And this I find uniquely interesting because most of us in the preparedness community in Canada, the US, even in South America, I'm dying here today, South America, we understand the benefit of a machete, a gun, a rifle, a bow and arrow, whatever the hell it is. We understand that certain implements may be needed in a defensive purpose or even an offensive purpose to stop someone from getting to your loved ones, right? One of the guys that was interviewed actually went so far as to say, I never appreciated how important it is. He said, my wife and I don't want firearms in our home. And I'm thinking to myself, you live on a border with a group of people two groups of people that don't like each other and have been known to be violent. You live about 10 kilometers in and you don't have a means to defend yourself. There are also reports that some farmers, some of the ranch people who were out, in the country, they did have firearms. They had, either M16s or rifles or hunting guns of some type. Apparently Hamas didn't mess with them too much. They started getting return fire and they're like, why are we messing with them? We have so many easy victims here, which is point number 4. They made themselves easy targets. Not the Israelis in general, but the civilians made themselves an easy target. And I took a lot from that because in Texas during Harvey, during the hurricanes, we had break-ins and crimes and rioting and, other mischief because the lights went out, right? The cops are busy doing other things and people did bad things. But every night you heard, well, so-and-so shot 2 burglars and burglars were beaten down at a convenience store because they were being assholes. And there was an expectation in Texas, people would defend their stuff. They would defend their families, their neighbors, the communities. I remember during, not Katrina, one of the other hurricanes in Louisiana, an entire community, the sheriff basically blocked the whole community. If you did not have a driver's license in that county or in that town, you could not get in unless you needed medical assistance. And you had to have a driver's license so they could run it to make sure you weren't a criminal. The communities came together, and in this case, it looks like a lot of these communities, these little townhomes, these little suburban hipster-style residences, and yes, there were hipsters there, did not have that. And if you think about America today, Canada today, and how many neighborhoods we have where they're like, oh, we don't like violence, we don't like firearms, we don't want to have prepping, somebody will come to save us, which is like the most offensive term for preparedness folks. That mentality cost people their lives. And I find that really interesting because you would think of all the places in the world, Israel, who gets attacked regularly, would have a different mindset. If I knew I was living closer to the Texas-Mexico border and there were illegals coming across, you're damn right I'd be checking my fences every day. And I would be going out armed. I'd be going out with my ranch hands if I could hire some. And we would repair those fences. I'd have cameras. I'd know what was going on. I'd have a retreat in my property if the family needed to flee and hide. And it would have amenities so that they can stay there and out of sight for an extended period of time. Apparently, what these folks had, a lot of them really look like tornado shelters, right? You go down there, a tornado comes through, you come out, right? Because that's how the rocket attacks have been. So what do we take from this? One, understand your area, right? You have a very flat terrain that we do out here. And a lot of these people have little cars. You saw the people getting shot up. They didn't plan an escape. It appears, judging from the people running on the highway and running from the concert, nobody had any kind of EDC. Nobody had any kind of get home bag, bug out bag, even just an emergency backpack. with a change of clothes, right? Even if I don't expect the apocalypse, I'm gonna have a backpack with a jacket, spare socks, because things happen, right? First aid kit. How many times have you gone out with the family and one of the kids eats shit, right? And then you have a Band-Aid requirement. They had nothing, which blew my mind, because even when I was that age, maybe it was the army in me, but I always had like my little emergency bag, I called it. Now it's my get-home bag. The words evolved over time, but the principle was the same. I had something to fall back on. So they didn't have any real preparedness. And sadly, it looks like when Hamas rolled through, Hamas was very organized. If you saw the videos, they were moving in fire teams. They were very disciplined in what they did. So a lot of weird lessons to learn. Again, they didn't appreciate that in their geology, in their geography, the flat location without a lot of desert between them, not a lot of rivers between them, not a lot of forest between them, made it very easy for the invaders, so to say, to come across on very light, fast vehicles like motorcycles and enter neighborhoods. Two, the folks did not have preps in their hiding place. If I had a little bunker, I would have at least amenities for a few days, if not more. If not, that was my retreat location, you know, depending on how big it is. So surprising. Three, apparently, even though they could access firearms with a license procedure, whatever Israel requires, they did not choose to arm themselves, because they didn't, at least these families that were interviewed, these very young families, we don't believe in guns, or we have the IDF to protect us. Well, the IDF has to come from somewhere. They don't hang out in your house. It's the same mentality with police. I can call 911. Texas has pretty decent response, but it's going to be 5-6 minutes before they get here. A lot can happen in 5-6 minutes. That's assuming the cops aren't being attacked, which they were in this case. So nobody was coming to help them. The cops were trying to fight their way back into their own damn station. So they didn't appreciate the speed. They didn't appreciate their geography. They didn't appreciate the need to have defensive items, or the ability, or have the ability to get the hell out quickly. And so many got caught on the same road, they clearly didn't plan out alternate routes. If I'm driving to flee an area with my wife and my dogs, and I see a bunch of cars getting shot to bits, I'm gonna have to find another route, right? Even if you're driving those little cars they have in Israel, you can take a sedan or a hatchback off-road if you don't become stupid. There, all those farms, they could have gone on the farm roads where the tractors go around the field, not through the field, and they could have run, at least get a few hundred yards, a kilometer or two out of the highway, and then go, you know, dump the car, grab your shit, go on foot, hide somewhere in the woods, right? Hamas isn't going to chase 4 people in the freaking forest or in the farms when they have 500. They can just corner in the middle of the highway. They didn't think that far ahead. And the fact that the civilians are admitting this on social media blows my mind. So folks, if you're doing all these things, continue to do them. If you're not, think about it. Do you have an effective get-home bag? A lot of creators, including myself, would put bug-out bags, get-home bags, EDC videos, training videos. Go do some homework. Find what you can do within your ability, within your budget, within your competency, and within the law. I'm not saying break any laws, but I'm just saying within the law, and then you make decisions from there. We'll just leave it like that, so that you can account for this. There's no reason that this kind of situation could not happen in the US or Canada or in Europe. Okay, Charlie Hebdo incident, it was 8 guys basically shut Paris down for 3 days. It was 6 guys and 2 women. They shot up the newspaper, and then they shot up Paris, and people didn't know where to go. They were freaking out, right? Except for that group of Frenchmen that was drunk on a balcony, apparently throwing wine bottles at the terrorists, which, you know, I give them credit, they improvised, but still. And then they got shot at, but, right, people don't think like this. You need to be the one to think like that. And one other thing, chances are if you think like that, I know I'm surrounded by a lot of outdoorsy types, you know, hunters, fishermen. We're kind of a little city in the country. You live in an urban area, a Chicago, a New York, a Minnesota, whatever, Minneapolis, Houston. You may not have that. And what you may have, much to the highway scenario, is a bunch of people hitting the highway at once, and now you have nowhere to go. And you might have to bail on the highway to get on foot if someone's attacking the vehicles. The fact that they didn't plan for the preps, they didn't plan for the defense, they didn't plan for hiding it for an extensive period, they didn't have the amenities to abandon their vehicles and run out on foot. If I'm driving and you see someone getting shot up in vehicles, you might have to bail or get off the road with your vehicle. And it doesn't, from the video footage I'm seeing, it didn't happen. Completely blows my mind, folks. So folks, some lessons I'm seeing, and again, I'm trying to take out the atrocities and the violence and the politics and the religion and just look at what was happening to people on the ground. Got some more footage that was sent to me. I'm gonna try to go through in the next few days, but take these lessons with a grain of salt. Remember, everyone's situation is different, but be prepared to change your plan. If your only idea is to throw the kids in the car with no bag, no food, no shoes, and run on the highway and get caught on the highway, well, now you're screwed even worse. I'd rather be stuck in my house and have the apocalypse come here and I can fight the apocalypse here than be caught on the highway. But I'm prepared on the highway too. So again, folks, some lessons, taking all the sentimental and the controversial stuff aside. The way this went down was very fast, very violent, and sadly very effective. And it seems like the average citizen in that part of Israel, most of them were not prepared at all for that possibility. And the fact they were so close to a border where violence has occurred in the past and they didn't prepare for it blows my mind. So that's my 2 cents on boots on the ground situation in Israel. As I get more info, I'll share it. If I can get some of this footage to where I can download it, because a lot of it I could see it, but it wouldn't let me download it. I have to figure out that technicality. I'll try and share some of that as well. But until next time, God bless, Godspeed. Evaluate your situation. I've been saying this for a while now. A lot of us are. Check your bag. Double check your bug out bag. I know a few of us have been doing videos of, oh, the winter bag and the summer bag. Make sure you just have a damn bag, because apparently people don't. Have something. Be ready. Think ahead and understand where you are physically, emotionally, and your location, what's around you. Because all of those things will come into play if something bad happens, whether it's a hurricane or it's an invasion, right? So folks, be safe out there, be calm, think through your problems, look for those gaps in your preps and fill them in budget. Please stay in budget. Remember, economy sucks. Now's not the time to run up debt. I'll see you guys later. God bless, Godspeed, and be safe out there.